Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We're back for another story. God's Word. So let's start with prayer. That's always a good place to start. And remember, after the prayer, I want you to say, Lord, hear me when I call. Have mercy and answer me. And then we're going to do this one, the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star one. Kind of hard for me to see, so I will do my best, and then I have to do this to get the end, okay? I need to memorize this better. So let's go. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Remember, let's be thankful for this day. Ready? Yeah. Let's be thankful for this day, for our friends and for our play. Let's be thankful, let's be glad for the food and things we have. Let's give thanks for you and me, for our home and family. Lord, hear me when I call. Have mercy and answer me. I love that scripture. Okay, we need to warm up. Here we go. Remember, I play, and then we make the sound with our voice. I always start with that one, don't I? There we go. We get our vocal folds warmed up and going. Okay. Let's listen to the tune that I've been teaching you lately. And this is that song, Lucy Lockett, Lost Her Pocket. Here, I'll play this so you can see. This is Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, in case you have a glockenspiel and you can play it. So we're going to be playing on Do, Re, Mi, Fa, So, So, La, La, So, Mi. Ready? Okay, now let's sing that in solfege. And remember, our hand starts up here, and then I make a little tunnel. I think it's hard to see my tunnel, okay? So just remember on la la, it looks like a little tunnel. So, la la, so, mi. 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 Okay, let's look at the rhythm. Remember, these are tatis and these are tas. Here we go. So, la la, so, mi. So, la la, so, mi. New sign. It means go back and do it at the end. The two lines with the two dots. So do it again. So, la la, so, mi. So, la la, so, mi. So it has the same rhythm pattern repeating and the same solfege. Now let's do this with our hands again, only this time we'll sing the words. Lucy Lockett lost her pocket. Kitty Fisher found it. There was not a penny in it, but a ribbon round it. Lucy Lockett lost her pocket. Kitty Fisher found it. There was not a penny in it, but a ribbon round. And we'll do more with that song next time, because I'm using folk songs to teach you musical elements. Let's look at this. Can you all see this? Now, this story we're about to hear that we heard last week in a different way is all about, well, it's all about Jesus mostly, but these are his disciples. These were the people that followed him and trusted him and believed in him. And remember, it's like, Jesus loves, yes, Jesus loves me, this I know. Jesus called them one by one. So let's do that. Jesus called them one by one. Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Then came Philip, Thomas. Oh, did I boo-boo? Jesus, I did. Mercy, sorry. Jesus called them one by one. Oh, so we do start up here. Okay, my brain was fried. Jesus called them one by one. Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Then came Philip, Thomas too, Matthew and Bartholomew. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them, and Jesus calls you too. James, the one they called the less, Simon also Thaddeus, 12th disciple Judas made. Jesus was by him betrayed. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them. Yes, Jesus called them, and Jesus called you too. Okay, remember last week? Please excuse me. Remember last week, we heard the story of Jesus' walk on earth and his resurrection. So I made these things. I thought they were fun. I'm going to put a piece of paper into your packet, and it's got the numbers 1 through 12, and right after I tell you what it is, I put what I have in each egg. So if you saved any of your plastic eggs from Easter, you can make one of these too. And I went and found, it took me a long time, but I went and found objects like toys, and you may have some toys that work. So if you have those toys, you can put them in, and if not, you can just draw pictures, and you'll see one where I couldn't find any toy for it. So I just drew a picture. So let's review and remember the happy ending to this story, okay? So I will open one of my eggs. I'm going to go in numerical order. That has a 1 on it. You can't see it very well. And you tell me what part of the story it is. So remember, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on and the people threw, I made that out of green felt, threw palm branches on the ground because they thought they were welcoming a king. They were welcoming a king, but not the kind of king they thought. So that's why I put it in a purple egg too, because purple is what kings wear. Boy, you can hardly tell that's even purple. Okay, so what happened next? Then Jesus told them, he sent some of his disciples into Jerusalem to get ready for the Passover feast. So they had their Passover, and remember, Jesus washed their feet, and Peter, no, you shouldn't wash my feet, I should wash yours. And Jesus said, if you don't let me do this, you have no part of me. And then he told them he was teaching them humility. And remember, that means everybody else is just as important as each of us. None of us are higher or lower. No matter how much money you have or anything, we are loved by God in the same way. Okay, so then after supper, let's see if I can get my fingers out of the way. And this I have because I collect miniatures, but again, you can just draw a picture. So Jesus took some bread and he broke it and he said, take and eat and remember me. And then he gave them a little cup of wine, and that's like, maybe it was like grape juice. They didn't drink strong wine all the time. And he said, drink this and remember me. So we do that. That's called communion. Every Sunday we do that. Well, there was one of the disciples, and he snuck off. His name was Judas. And Jesus knew it was going to happen. He came to earth so that he could show God's love. That was his big purpose. He ate with people that were big sinners. People hated tax collectors back then. Poor people aren't so loved now, but they hated them because they cheated them all the time. And Jesus went and sat and ate with those people. And he ate and hung out with people that some people consider lowly, but he did not consider them any lower than a king, even if they were poor and didn't have any food and had to beg for food. So they went to the Garden of Gethsemane. And I couldn't find anything for this, so I drew a picture. And you can draw pictures if you want to make this and just put them in there. And I would rather you draw pictures than look at mine. So Jesus went to Gethsemane and he left his disciples a little behind, and he fell on the ground and he prayed, Lord, if this cup could pass from me, please let that happen. But if not, your will be done, not mine. Because he knew it was going to happen. And he went back, and his disciples were knocked out asleep. And he said, can't you wait for me and pray with me for 1 hour? Oh, and they tried to wake up, and he went and prayed the same thing again, and he came back, and they were asleep again. And it happened a third time. And Jesus said, I guess the flesh is willing, but the spirit is weak. But on the third time he said, see, my betrayer comes. So he knew exactly who was going to turn him over to the Jewish council. So they had given Judas, remember I told you Judas snuck away? They had given him 30 pieces of silver, and that's like our coins, but they have different pictures on it. And so Jesus saw Judas coming, and he said, wake up now, it's time. My betrayer is here, it's time for me to go. And of course they were probably sleepy and whatnot, and I forgot to tell you, at the Lord's Supper, Jesus had told Peter, you're going to deny that you even know me. And he said, no, I won't. I'll never do that. Well, let me get this off my keyboard. It keeps making noise. After they came and arrested Jesus, they took him away. But he kissed Jesus on the cheek, and he said, greetings, Rabbi. And Jesus knew what was happening, and he said, just do what you have to do. And so all those people that came with him, the Jewish council and some soldiers, they had, clubs and whatever. And when they laid hands on Jesus after Judas had kissed him, they laid hands on Jesus. And one of Jesus' followers said, no, and cut off one of the servant's ears because he was close. And Jesus said, no, if you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. Don't you think I could ask my Father and he would send me 12 legions of angels, which are like 72,000 angels. And so he healed the servant's ear, and he let him. Jesus let them take him away and arrest him. Well, the other disciples were terrified and they ran away. But Peter kept following the group, and they went to the place where the Jewish council was meeting. And while they were in there doing their business, Peter was outside, and a servant came up to him and said, "You were one that was with him." And Jesus said, No, I wasn't. You're mistaken. Then he moved, I think, to a porch. And another servant, girl servant, came up and said, you were with the Galilean. And Peter said, No. He was pretty angry at that time. And so he moved again, and then there were other bystanders, because everybody was waiting to see what they were going to do to Jesus, because they had been following him. There were just as bigger crowds. They had been following him and wanting to be healed and whatnot. Well, he got really angry and started cussing, and he said, "I don't know the man." And right then, he heard a rooster crow, and he remembered that what Jesus had said, that before the rooster crows in the morning, you will deny that you even know me 3 times. Peter was miserable. He knew he had done the wrong thing, but he was afraid. He was afraid they were going to take him and kill him too. So he just ran off and wept. And he asked God's forgiveness, and God forgave him. So Jesus was in with the Jewish leaders. Now, not all the Jewish leaders wanted Jesus punished, wanted crucified. And we'll hear about one of those in a minute. But some people that were there, they just followed the crowd. And so they put a purple robe on him, because kings, he called himself the king. And they put a purple robe on him, and then they put a crown of thorns. Oh, that really hurt. And they said, "Well, we'll give you a crown." And they gave him a terribly painful one. And I guess enough of the Jewish council decided that they want him crucified. So they took him to Pilate, the governor from the Roman Empire that was in charge. The Jewish council wasn't in charge, just in charge of the religion. Well, they took him there, and some people were hitting him and striking him and saying, "You're a king, prophesy, who hit you?" They were so mean. Well, Pilate, who was the governor and in charge, he was listening about why they wanted Jesus crucified and punished. And he said, I'm not seeing it. You have no witnesses. Nothing is happening. I see no evidence that you have done this. And so he called and asked, if I can show that to you, he called and asked for a bowl of water. And he talked about, I don't think that this man did anything wrong. So I'm going to wash my hands, and the blood is going to be on your hands. Well, that couldn't really happen, because the Jews couldn't crucify anybody. Well, so after he washed his hands of the whole situation, he gave them over to the Roman guard. And they took him and hung him on a cross, because that's how they punished people in those days. And his followers followed, and they were watching from afar, because again, they were afraid that they would die. Well, Jesus was hung between 2 thieves on the cross, and it took him a while to die, to pass away. And so while they were doing that, while they were waiting, they put that beautiful purple robe on him. So somebody wanted to take it. So they were gambling. And we know about dice, and you can play some gambling games, but you don't always gamble with dice. And you learn numbers and whatnot. So they They gambled and they were just hanging around waiting. Well, then it got dark and everything was dark. And Jesus was talking to God, but all the people thought that he was talking to the prophets before him, like Elijah and whatnot. And he just told God, "Oh, did you deserve me, God?" He was feeling awful. And then it came close, and there was an earthquake. It came close, and Jesus died. And they poked him in the side with a spear, and his blood came out. They could tell he was dead. And his mother and the other Marys were there, and they were weeping and weeping because they didn't understand what was going to happen. So Joseph of Arimathea, who was part of the Jewish council, but he was a righteous man and believed in Jesus. So he went and asked for the body of Jesus. He had to go ask Pilate because, the Romans were in charge. And Pilate said, yes, but first I have to make sure he's dead. So he sent a soldier, and they found out he was really dead, and then Pilate gave permission. Well, that was preparation day for Sabbath, and you could do no work on the Sabbath. And what the Jews tried to do is always bury the people, put them in the tomb, prepare their bodies, and put them in the tomb right away. So it was like 3:00 in the afternoon when Jesus died, and Sabbath started at 6. So they didn't have time to anoint Jesus' body with the spices and the oils that they usually did for their dead. And all they had was a piece of linen. And Joseph, I'm sure, got somebody to help him, and they took him and they wrapped him just in linen and put him in a tomb. And then, because they thought, his disciples might try to play a trick on him and steal his body, they rolled a really heavy stone in front of the tomb, and they put the Roman seal on it. Well, nobody would break that Roman seal. And then Pilate put soldiers in front of him. And the women went home, and they started preparing the spices for the next day. And then they had to get ready for Passover. So there's some spices. That's what cinnamon looks like. That's a stick of what cinnamon looks like. And then these are cloves of garlic. Not garlic, so brightly. These are cloves of nutmeg. And that's what they look like. So they had other spices, and they went and they put them on. And they got them all ready to put on Jesus the next day. Well, Sabbath lasted all the way until dark the next day, and they had to wait till Sunday. So the women gathered together their spices and their clean linen cloth, I'm sure, and they were thinking, how are we going to roll that stone away or get past those soldiers? Well, as they came up, there was an earthquake. And the big stone rolled away. And all those soldiers were terrified because they knew they would die if they didn't complete their mission. And so an angel had come down and sat on the rock. And the women, they were afraid too. They didn't know what was going on. And the angel said, who are you looking for? What are you looking for? And he said, you're looking for Jesus. Jesus isn't here. Jesus had risen from the dead. Nobody had seen that part. And they told the women who wanted to come and dress his body, oh, look, in the tomb, there's nothing. Jesus has been raised. Well, they didn't know what to think. And that's okay. A lot of things Jesus did, they didn't know what to think. So there's some things that happen. Now, that story you heard last time, and we told it again using objects instead of pictures. Well, there were times for 40 days after Jesus rose up from the dead, Jesus appeared to the people he loved. The first one was, everybody else ran away. The soldiers ran away. They went to tell what had happened, and they were told, just tell everybody the disciples stole their body. Well, that couldn't have happened with the tomb sealed by the Roman government and all those soldiers, but they did, and they gave them lots of money. So they went into the background, and Mary Magdalene, the other women had left, and she was just sitting there thinking, what have they done with my body? And this man walked up behind her and said, who are you looking for? And she thought it was a gardener, so she said, my Lord, they took him. They took him from the tomb, and I want to know where his body is. So she turned around and she said, if you know where his body is, take me to it. And she didn't recognize him because his body had been glorified. So she is weeping and crying, and Jesus just says her name, Mary. And then she said, it's you, Lord. So he told her, to go and tell the other disciples. Oh, she was so excited. I bet she even dropped the spices on the way. She was so excited. And she had told them to tell him that to go into the upper room and he would come see them there. So not only did they go up into an upper room, they locked the door. They were terrified that the same thing that had happened to Jesus was going to happen to them. And Jesus appeared before him, and they didn't know him at first. And then he started talking to them, and they recognized his voice, and he showed them his wounds, and then he breathed on them. I love that. He breathed on them. And so they listened and talked to him. Well, he appeared to people for 40 days, to his people, the followers that he loved. He appeared to him for 40 days after the resurrection. And so here's another quick story. Now, these are pictures you have to color, or what I would love is if you would just draw them yourself. That would be cool. Well, these two men, one's named Cleopas, and they're not one of the 12 disciples. He appeared to his other followers also. And they were walking on this road. They were going to Emmaus. And Jesus started walking with them. And they didn't recognize him because his body had been glorified. And he said, oh, what are you all talking about? And they said, well, are you the only one in Jerusalem who hasn't heard all of the events? So they talked to him about all the things that we just reminded you of from in eggs. And they still didn't recognize him. And they were getting to Emmaus, and Jesus started to walk away, and they said, why don't you come eat dinner with us? So they went, and they ate dinner together. And then after the meal, Jesus took the bread, and he broke it. And then they recognized him. They knew it was Jesus, and he disappeared. So they turned right back around and went back and were talking to the disciples. And there was another time, I like this story too, that the fishermen, they didn't know what to do. They didn't have any idea what to do. So they just went back to their fishing boats. And Jesus had walked up on the shore and called out to them, and he said, oh, did you not have any good luck fishing? And he said, no, we didn't catch anything. And Jesus said, well, go out and throw your nets down on the other side of the boat. And then, of course, their nets were filled with fish, and the nets didn't break like they should have because there were so many fish. And another boat came and helped them get it out. And by the time they got to shore, Jesus had made breakfast for them. And they were, I'm sure they were just chatting, and they were so excited because then they recognized Jesus because of the miracle of the fish that had happened. Well, Jesus appeared to people many more times than that. And there they're all in the scriptures. If you want to look them up yourself, just go Google it, and they'll tell you that. Well, finally the 40 days was over, and Jesus said, it's time for me to go back and sit at the right hand of the Father. So he went, and one of the important things that he talked to him about was, now your job is to go out and tell people all the things you have seen. So they wrote books to tell about it. They went from town to town to preach about it. And Jesus, his body and his spirit, ascended back up to God and is seated at his right hand, waiting to come back for us. So Jesus came, God sent his only begotten Son. Jesus came to spread God's love. And that was Jesus' mission. And he worked on it and trained people to do the same thing, to carry on after he was gone. And all that time he was eating with sinners and women who sold their bodies, and all the people that the Jewish council hated because they were sinners. Well, we're all sinners, but the Jewish council thought they were cut above. And when Jesus washed all the disciples' feet, he was trying to teach them humility, that nobody's higher or lower than anybody. In God's eyes, we are equal. And he loves people that are righteous and try to do everything that he wants. And he loves people that try to do everything the opposite of what he wanted. He came to show God's love. Well, when he died and rose again, he conquered hate and sin and death. He stuck to his mission to spread God's love, and it cost him his life. And he knew what was going to happen, and he still did it because he showed us the ultimate love is to lay down your life for a friend, and he laid down his life for all of us. So next time we're going to talk about what part of God comes down to walk with us. Because we don't have to wait till we're dead to see Jesus. But we don't see him like we're going to see him later. But Jesus walks with us. He stays with us and walks with us. And we're going to see how Jesus took care of that. So now these things could only happen because God is so big and so powerful and mighty that she can do anything. So let's sing our song to end. My God is so big. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty. My God can make everything new. The mountains are hers, the rivers are his, the stars are her handiwork too. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty. My God can make everything new for you and you and you and you and you and me. God bless you guys. I hope you know this story. I hope you have fun making your eggs, using your old Easter eggs. And God bless you. I hope I will see you next time.